There are a couple of factors. One is economics of scale. Private foundation simply doesn't make sense unless it's going to have a continuing endowment, in my view, of in excess of $2 million. Much below that, the cost and maintenance and upkeep simply make it an inefficient means for carrying on the philanthropy. But even more than that is that many clients underestimate the regulatory environment, the maintenance and upkeep responsibility of a private foundation. They don't realize that giving away money is every bit as much of a challenge as creating it in the first place, and unless it's managed systematically, it not only becomes inefficient, but you get into trouble. And so frequently the ability of a public charity like the California Community Foundation to handle all of the administrative responsibilities and really have the client focus on the philanthropic mission makes it the best choice, the best avenue for the client's philanthropy.
The other advantage of a community foundation is that you have the entire programmatic staff at your disposal. One of the things that's very hard for private foundations is to find out who's doing the best work in the community in any given area, who's doing the best inner city education, who's doing the best therapeutic dance program. There's no way that your average family foundation is going to have that without perhaps hiring an independent consultant. If you have a donor-advised fund, you can say to CCF or JCF, tell me who's doing this the best. Or if I'm about to make a grant to an organization that's financially precarious or really not doing a great job, that input comes voluntarily. So I've found the programmatic aspect to be fabulous.
I was just going to add to what Stu said, that sometimes donors don't know what they don't know. So for example, they could run afoul of the unrelated business taxable income rules or other rules. And if they had someone like CCF in place handling the investing or at least guiding them, then that probably wouldn't be a problem. But if they're handling everything on their own, it could be a big problem.
Well, in my experience, most of my clients are entrepreneurial, and as Ginger said, they prefer to keep control of their investments, they prefer to keep control of their charitable wishes, and they also want their families to keep control. In most public funds, you can't go below the child level. You can't have grandchildren involved or great-grandchildren involved. Again, I think as Ginger or Alyse said, that may be more hopeful wishing than actual reality, because many of these foundations don't last into the third and fourth generation. They either get dissolved, rolled into a public charity because the children, grandchildren don't really care, or get paid out just because no one cares as much as the founders do.
Well, part of it, the dilemma for me is buying into some of my clients' very different views from mine. I grew up the daughter of a labor organizer, and my politics are fairly liberal. And so for me, when a client asks me to form a charity that's going to support something that makes me cringe, I just have to put my personal beliefs aside and say, okay, everyone is entitled to his or her own view, and this is this person's. But then, you know, and then on the other hand, there are the Joan Palevskis of the world, and as you know, helping her fulfill her charitable goals was probably one of the greatest thrills of my life. I'd been doing her estate planning for a very long time, and when she started to describe the things that she wanted to do, the list that she gave me for organizations that she wanted to benefit directly, if I could have handpicked them myself, it would have been every single one on that list. It was organizations focused on the very greatest in need, and I'm sure the people at CCF know the story of how she ended up leaving what became her endowment. She asked me, well, actually, I said to her, you need an everything else. You need a charity that gets whatever's left, if there's anything left. And she said to me, you know, I read in the LA Times that there's an organization called the California Community Foundation, and they really want every child in LA to have a book. She said to me, believe it or not every child has one book. And I said, oh, well, they're a very good organization. I know them well. And she said, I don't really think there'll be anything left after all my other gifts, but let's name them to receive everything else, and that everything else ended up being a very big legacy.
Yes.
I think that there's a lot of caring and concern in the community as a whole, and it comes across in many areas. And one of the biggest ones I see from some very successful people deals with education and the failure of public education and the challenges facing public education. So I see that as an area where there's a great deal of interest and a great deal of concern, and people are not quite sure exactly how to go about that, but I think that that's an area where the future of our country depends on the education of our citizens, and many people want to contribute to that in one way or another.